Hey everybody, so today we got a video about Pascal's wager. And for those of you that don't know, Pascal was a philosopher in the 15 and 1600s, and he basically says that we wager our lives every day when making the decision to either believe in God or not believe that a God exists. And more specifically, his what he was saying was that basically if you believe, if God exists and you believe in God, then you get to go to heaven and you'll have eternal life. But if God exists and you don't believe, then you'll be eternally damned, and you'll spend the rest of your life weeping and gnashing in the fiery pits of hell. The other part of the wager that people do is those people that don't believe in God and believe that God doesn't exist, that they're wagering and saying that, well, if God doesn't exist and I don't believe, nothing happens. And if God doesn't exist and I do believe, nothing happens. So either way, nothing happens. So the latter is the one that I subscribe these days to, though for years I didn't realize that Pascal's wager was actually something that I was living out, in the sense that I viewed, better to live a good life as a Christian and a good Christian boy and go to church and believe in God, because, what's the alternative? It's at the end of my life, if I die and there's nothing there, then, well, hey, nothing happens, no harm, no foul. But if I'm wrong, then I'm going to fry. And so I take issue with that. I think that if you're going to live your life and believe in God, it should have nothing to do with any kind of punishment that you might receive, any kind of eternal damnation that may be coming to you. If you're going to believe in God, you believe in God because that resonates in your soul, and that you believe it because you want to believe it, not because some fear tactic has been instilled in you that says, oh, you have to believe or else. And those people that don't want to believe, that's fine. You don't believe it. I think everyone should be free to exercise their free will. I think that if God really exists, He's given us this brain to sift information and look at the situation and say, okay, you know what? I'm using the brain that God has given me, and I'm deciding that, this just doesn't hold up to be true. And to say that, God will punish you because you used your free will, that doesn't make any sense. Is God sadistic? Why would He punish you for using the brain that He gave you, to use the intelligence that you have? And if you're sitting there saying in your mind, this just doesn't add up, it doesn't compute the existence of a higher power, then that should be okay. He shouldn't punish you for that because you used the concepts and the idea, looked at everything that was around you and came up and deduced and said, no, I can't believe that a God exists. Why should you be tortured for the rest of your life for using, because there was people around you that you could have listened to and that tried to tell you that God was really real. Why should I listen to them? They have to live their own life the way they want to live their life. I should live my life the way I want to live my life. But that's not, for Christians, that's not acceptable. That's not good enough for them, So I'm digressing, but Pascal's wager, interesting concept about wagering our lives and whether we believe or we don't believe. Either way, like the Rush song says, either we believe or don't believe, either way we've made a choice, So, that's free will, right? So believe if you want to believe, don't believe if you don't want to believe. And either way, you're wagering your life. So either way, you know what? If you want to live the good life and follow the Lord's commandments and everything, hey, then do that. If you feel comfortable with that, and you can be intellectually dishonest with yourself and overlook some significant issues that you find in the scriptures and just some inconsistencies that don't, if you can harmonize them away, then, well, I guess more power to you. But I would rather live the intellectually honest life. I'm not an atheist by any means. I don't know. I'm not in any position to decide and to try to settle this, centuries-year-old debate that will never be solved. It'll only be solved in your mind when you make that wager, when you decide, does God exist or does God not exist? And, I'm okay with it either way. It's for a period of my life, I believed. And now at the period of my life, I struggle. I struggle with it. And you say, well, you're backslidden, Dan. You're this or that. Well, say what you will, but I have a hard time swallowing that pill these days when I look at the world around me and I see so much suffering and I see there's no explanation. And then people will try to explain it by saying, oh, it's because of the devil's world and he's the king, he has dominion of this world. It's always some kind of some very basic level. It's not that human beings are messed up. It's not that we could be the wicked, evil ones, that the monster really resides within us, that we're really the one that's the devil. You know, it could never be that we created all these things with heaven and hell. No, those constructs, those never seem to enter into some people's minds. It enters my mind. I sit there and think, you know what? Maybe we invented religion. Maybe we invented, I mean, when you look at the world around you, there's all these different religions out there, and they just serve people's way. You know, they just serve their means to an end, ends to a means, whatever. It's just, that's what it is. You know, at one point, you know, not to attack the Catholics, but Catholicism was a big thing about control and power and getting people, you know, to be converts and come to the Catholic Church so they could make money. That was what it was about. You know, they would charge them money for their children to be baptized after they had already died before they were baptized. I mean, there was all these things that have happened. I'm not singling out Catholics by any means. I mean, you know, you've got a number of other religion denominations out there that it's just ridiculous. But I don't know. I'm not an enemy, as Robert Price says. I mean, I'm not an enemy of the church. I'm not an enemy of religion. Like he says, there's an awful lot of great wisdom, pearls of wisdom. There's an awful lot of good that exists in the Bible, and that's what we should leave it at. Leave it at just that, and not into some type of dogma that you have to actually, you know, be legalistic and you have to follow the letter of the law, or God's going to come down with some big combat boot from the sky and just ram it up your butt and just be like, you know what, you know, you didn't follow the letter to the law, you know, the letter to the T or whatever. You didn't follow the letter of the law, and now you're going to suffer. You know, it's like that's not God. That's not a loving and caring, compassionate God. To me, those concepts to me originated out of man. You know, we created those ideas, these ideas of heaven and hell and punishment and sort of thing, you know, because it seems to be inconsistent. If some divine creator could make the world into, you know, why would he be like Bob Price says, why would he be so petty and naive to be like, you know what I mean? Why would he be like that? That doesn't make, you know, and that's not consistent with the teachings we find in the Bible about how God is a loving, compassionate God, and say, well, you know, if God created the world, he can do whatever he wants. Well, yeah, I guess so, if he truly exists. But if he doesn't, I'm just saying, I mean, you're living your life to these standards that, you know what, if that's how you want to live and you need religion as a crutch, whether it be whatever denomination or religion you follow, and if it helps you, I think of that movie with Sean Penn and Robert De Niro, the Were No Angels, and he's like, if that helps you, then that's a good thing. You know, Sean Penn's reading from the little firearms book that he has. Have you ever been lost in the wilderness? And so, you know, it's like we've all been lost in the wilderness, but it's like, is God the answer? Is that the only recourse you have? And I guess that's, at some point, we as human beings must have decided that, yes, we need to reach out to something that may exist outside of ourselves and some higher power, and it seems like we created these things, and I'm not sure if they exist or not, but again, that's the wager that I'm willing to take. That's the bet, that's the gamble that I'm willing to take, and you take it as well. Everyone makes that bet. Either God exists or he don't exist, and if you're wrong and he does exist, well, sucks to be us, right? Sucks to be you. And if he doesn't exist and you live a good life, well, hey, that's great too. You know, I'm not going to knock anybody for doing what they think is right and everything, but it becomes a problem when religion becomes like genocide, when it becomes like bigotry, when you start hating other people and you know, tearing people down. You know, like, you know, some of our, you know, cross-gender folks and, you know, gay and lesbians, and you know, when you start referring back to the Old Testament Bible and trying to use passages that are, you know, long before Christianity even came around. It's back when, you know, no one had even heard of Jesus, knew that there would be a Jesus, even if there was a Jesus. You know, it's like to sit there and say, well, you know, the Old Testament, you know, it's an abomination, and it's like, so I know I'm digressing, I'm getting way off topic here, but it's just like the idea of, if you want to believe, hey, you know, you believe. If you don't want to believe, you don't believe. And I don't think anybody should have condemnation if they choose not to believe. But there is, you know, oh, the Christians, you know, you got to go after those people and try to win their hearts and minds, win their souls for Christ, because that's what they're indoctrinated to do. Okay, whatever. But you know what? For the rest of us that want to be free thinkers and think for ourselves, you know, that's the camp I want to sleep in every night. I don't want to be part of something where I have to believe because I'm afraid of fire and brimstone, and because, you know, I might be punished. You know, I mean, the brain that I have in my head tells me that these things don't compute, and if it doesn't compute, then I'm like, okay, I'm not going for this. I'm not buying it. I'm not I can't subscribe to that. I'm sorry. So that's my wager.